Hello and welcome to this episode of the Spiced In Podcast. My name is Jacob and I'm your host. Today we will be talking about the Mandalorian Gallery, episodes 7 and 8, as well as this whole slew of news courtesy of StarWars.com from this past week. The biggest of which is The Mandalorian is coming to print. So we have seven major projects announced for The Mandalorian. The first is The Art of the Mandalorian Season 1 by Phil Stosak and cover by Doug Chang. Then we have an original novel about the Mandalorian. It's an adult novel by Adam Christopher. We have the Ultimate Visual Guide by Pablo Hidalgo. We have The Mandalorian Allies and Enemies, which is a level 2 reader by Brooke Vital. We also have a Mandalorian 8x8 storybook with a to-be-revealed title, also by Brooke Vital. And then we have the junior novelization, which should just be the events of Season 1 by Joe Schreiber. So that's, a lot there. We don't really know a whole lot beyond that. Again, the adult novel will be an original book, original story, and all of this will be launching sometime between winter 2020 and spring 2021. So a lot to cover there. We're also getting comics from both Marvel and IDW. So Marvel will be kind of your traditional comic books. IDW will either probably get a graphic novelization, and IDW normally does like younger reader stuff. For the Star Wars comics, we're going to get probably either a graphic novelization of Season 1 or a spin-off of the Star Wars Adventures comic book series, which is just targeted at a younger audience. So a lot going on there. The pre-order links are live for both the original novel and the art of The Mandalorian, so you can check those out on Amazon if you're interested. Another big story we had this week was the Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark is coming out August 25th. We've known about this for a little while, but they released some more information about the book. It's going to be an anthology series with a bunch of different writers taking on different stories from the TV show. So all of them have taken an arc or an episode and based a new story around that. So we're just going to do a rundown of all of the different authors and their stories. So we have Lou Anders. He's writing Dooku Captured and the Gungan General based on those episodes. Tom Engelberger with Bane's story, which is based on the episodes Deception, Friends and Enemies, The Box, and Crisis on Naboo. We have Preeti Schreiber with Hostage Crisis, based on the episode of the same name. We have E. Ann Convery with The Bug, based on the episode Massacre. We have Zoraida Cordova with The Lost Night Sister, based on Bounty. We have Sarah Beth Durst with Almost a Jedi, based on A Necessary Bond, part of the Gathering arc. We have Greg Van Eckhout with Kenobi Shadow, based on the episode Lawless. Jason Fry with Sharing the Same Face, based on the episode Ambush. Yoon Ha Lee with The Shadow of Umbara, based on the Umbaran arc from Season 3. We have Rebecca Roanhorse with Dark Vengeance, based on the episode Brothers. And Ursu with Pursuit of Peace, based on Heroes of Both Sides. And that is all 11 stories, and it's going to be released again on August 25th. So look forward to that. I'm thinking about doing a rewatch of all these episodes and maybe doing podcast just kind of talking about those. I'm really excited. There's a lot of really solid Clone Wars episodes in here, and arcs. Whenever I talk about the Clone Wars, I always I enjoy it, but I enjoy specific parts of it. There's a lot of filler, a lot of fluff, so they picked out some of the best stories of the whole series, so I'm really excited to see those with a little added extra to them. So I'm really excited to see that. And we might have a little bit more to talk about that in the next coming weeks. We also had Lego Mosaics. They're a new product line from Lego. They released a bunch of different ones, but they have a Star Wars one, which it's a giant tile of 1x1 circular studs, and you make a little mosaic. And you can buy a Star Wars kit, which you can either build Kylo, Maul, or Vader with the same kit, and pick which one you want. Or you can buy all three, and you stack 3 tiles together, and you have a vertical 3x1 Darth Vader portrait. They are $115 though, so it's really kind of meant as more an art piece and not as much a Lego set. So I'm probably not going to get one with that kind of price tag on it. But they do definitely look really cool. Other news, we have Solo is coming to Disney Plus this Friday, the 10th. So that will be should be the last Star Wars movie to come to Disney Plus. We should have the entire series up now. Then let's see. I mentioned it last week, but we have the spiceden.com now, and there's a lot more content since we last talked. There's now a few articles with one about the Mandalorian Publishing Initiative that I spoke about. So, and I might be writing an article on that Clone Wars stuff as well. So check those out if you're interested. Again, the spiceden.com. We also have a Master and Apprentice book review up, so you can check that out as well if you're interested in getting more into reading. I give a non-spoiler review as well as some spoilers, so you can kind of base your purchasing on that. One thing I am doing with this website is anytime I have an article, especially for book reviews, I'm going to have Amazon referral links up. If you're, I don't ask that you buy something, but if you're interested already and you're going to buy it anyways, and you find some more information on my website that helps you out, I'd appreciate it if you go check those out. It costs you the same. I get a little kickback. I would love to be able to just, pay for the hosting fees for my website would be great. That's a big stretch goal, but I think it would be a really nice thing to shoot for, just so I'm not paying completely out of pocket for this. But yeah, if you're interested, check out book reviews, check out articles. If I have a relevant product, I will give you an Amazon referral link, and you can feel free to go from there. So we got that. And the last bit of news for the podcast, and I've hinted at it a few times, but we are having a special guest on our next episode. We're going to be joined by Brick Hardmeat from the Galaxy of Bureaus podcast. If you've listened to my show at all, you know those guys. They're great. I've been on their show twice now, and they're a lot of fun to hang out with. I had Darth Darkett on for the Clone Wars Season 7 finale, and I'm having Brick on now to talk. Well, I'm going to leave it as a little surprise. I'll just say it's my first episode about something that is not canon. So we're going Legends, and we're going to have a little fun with Brick, just kind of chill and chat, and hopefully we're going to have a pretty good episode for you next week. But that should be all for news, so we're going to move right into our main topic, which is the Mandalorian Gallery episodes 7 and 8. So episode 7 is all about the music of the series. Personally, this meant a whole lot to me. I have a pretty big background with music. I'm 24 now, so I've been playing instruments, been playing music for 13 years, I think now, roundabout. I think that's right. I started in 6th grade, like a lot of American school children did, and played instruments throughout college. I graduated 2 years ago now, so haven't played much since graduation, but it's definitely something I'm going to get back to, hopefully in the next year or two. Although I'm sure my dog would hate it, but music's been a whole lot to me. It's been a huge part of my life, so seeing this episode was really cool. We got to see a lot from the composer of the series, Ludwig Göransson. He, talked about his creative process and everything. It was just super cool to watch as someone who is, pretty into music and into, creating and playing music and listening as well. So he talked about his process. One of the first things he started with was recorders. And, if you watch the episode, you're probably not going to recognize the recorder he played on. Recorders you're playing in elementary school are often soprano recorders. This is a bass recorder, so it's a lot larger, produces a lot deeper sound. And he used that for like the intro to the theme. And then he shows you his process of layering different sounds on top of that. So starting with the recorder, and then the drums and piano and bass, and then acoustic guitar, and then how that all kind of comes together, and then the orchestration of that. So really cool to see that. A bit of background about him: he was roommates with Ryan Coogler at USC, who was the director of the Black Panther, and he also had some connections with Donald Glover, which shows, how he got involved with Favreau in this project. Favreau big in the MCU, and then he had Donald Glover as Simba in his Lion King remake recently, so a lot of connections there. And they brought him in, and one of the key things is they wanted him to do something different from the typical John Williams Star Wars soundtrack. John Williams is iconic and means an incredible amount to both Star Wars and just cinematic music as a whole. Like, it's the largest possible set of shoes you could step into. But instead of, wanting to ape what he did, they just wanted him to do something completely different, which was if they went just more Star Wars, we would have we wouldn't have as inspired a soundtrack as we got. So that was really good. But, we go back to his studio and he talks a little bit more about, his process. He talks about this rare guitar synthesizer he had and how, you can't recreate this with computers nowadays. Like, it's the analog versus digital conversation and how there's so much, digital is super important, but there's so much more rawness to an analog creation. So that was really cool to see. And one of his big driving factors was just the nature of the project is, we talked about it earlier in some of the previous episodes, is when the actor doesn't have a face and doesn't really speak that much. You have to try and tell a story through other means, and part of that is the music. Something I always dreamed about, especially when I was in high school, when I thought about having music as a career, was playing in an orchestra for a soundtrack, whether that's for a video game or a movie or something like that. I definitely don't have that talent level, but it was something I always really wanted to do, and I love seeing them now. So it was cool to see the behind the scenes of that. And my girlfriend and I watched the Frozen making of documentary this past week, and they had more of that. So it's really an enjoyable thing to see, and just how their process of how it's music and it's art, and it takes a lot of interpretation, but it's also laser focused. You have to be perfectly timed up with the what's happening on the screen, and you have to be perfect with your playing ability. You can't miss notes in something like this. It has to be spot on. So that was really cool. And again, more about his creative process. He just said how he basically locked himself away in his room for a couple months with just his instruments, no computers or anything like that, and just tried to pound away some new ideas. So he came to the set with 5-minute long tracks to sample. And we actually see a clip of behind the scenes where he shows up and shows Favreau and Bryce Dallas Howard the intro recorder bit while they're on the set filming for Chapter 4. And he even in this basic early recording, he used a bathtub to create the reverb with that recorder, which is super cool. They also talk a little bit about his music for Chapter 6, The Prisoner, with the Mousy was the song he made, and he went pretty old school. He has a bunch of analog electronics with patch cables all over the place, and just pretty much tooling around. And he said almost is out of random that this song came together. As much as I know, with classical music, this is completely out of my wheelhouse. So that was kind of more just me taking in what he did. And they go back and talk more about the orchestra and how important that is to bring this sense of scale, and they fully realize his creation through the orchestra. And it was super cool that he had his pregnant wife was the concert master. So she's the lead violin player for an orchestra that kind of is, everyone is looking to her, as well as the conductor, obviously, and listening into her and her style. And they just go on to say how the music brings it all together, how it unites it and really creates this whole vision. But that was that episode. These two episodes, I feel like there's a lot going on, but not a lot to talk about. I feel like it's best to just embrace it and experience it by watching. You're not going to get much from me commenting on it. The next episode was Connections, and it was talking about the connections to all the Star Wars universe as a whole. And really it was playing a big game of I Spy, and they just here's this thing we brought from this movie and this movie. And I watched this first with my girlfriend, who is definitely getting more into Star Wars, but the first time I watched it, it's oh yeah, that one's from Empire. Yeah, that's from the holiday special. Yeah, that's from Ewoks Adventures. It was kind of fun just seeing what all I recognized before they kind of explained it. But they're trying to bring in a lot from the universe and have them as reference points, which I find super cool. I love connecting the dots. It's one of the things I really like about reading the books is seeing, oh, here's this reference. I know that comes from this book. And now I know that helps me, that influences my interpretation of the book I'm reading, because they might name drop someone, but for someone that's not as informed, they just see the name, they kind of move on. I see the name, I think of the 3 other books this person was in and all the character development they've had and what that means. So I really like this kind of stuff. But it was just basically rattling off lists of everything that they took from the universe. They had the Incinerator Trooper came from The Force Unleashed. The E-Web Cannon came from Empire Strikes Back. The Death Troopers from Rogue One. Wilro Hood. Wilro Hood was what a great callback for that. That it was the ice cream maker dude in the background of Bespin on Empire Strikes Back. Someone that the fans just kind of drew to for the absurdity that this dude was just, again, it's the old school Lucasfilm, Star Wars, where props are just whatever they could get their hands on, just like basically kind of like, it's like walk into a thrift store, just pulling off 5 random items off the shelf and saying, let's see what we can do with this. Like, that's kind of the vibe you get. So we had this character in the background that was holding an ice cream maker. So, and of course he becomes basically an old meme of a character. There are people that dress up with him at Celebration and run their ice cream makers around the convention hall. And now the ice cream maker has been canonized as basically a little safe, a little personal safe. So that was really cool with Wilro. We also had, they talked about just trying to bring things in that were background pieces in the old movies and trying to breathe them new life, basically. Like you had IG-88 to IG-11. The Devronians with Berg. You had the droid EV-99. You had the Quarrens, which I would say they've kind of gotten their due now, with like, especially with all the stuff in the Clone Wars and everything. But yet Blurgs, you had Ugnaughts, like all these things that were just minor background pieces in the original trilogy that are really being brought out and expanded upon, which is kind of just the whole vibe of like the expanded universe, really. But something interesting, they were saying Queel was originally going to talk like an Ugnaught, which, if you've watched Rebels, is lots of basically pig squealing and grunts. But they watched early footage of it, and it was just like, with him talking with the Jawas, it's like you got pig snorting and Jawa speak, and then the Mando just staring blankly in subtitles. And it's like, dude, this isn't watchable. So they had to switch him up. They got Nick Nolte in, and obviously it worked really well. They also brought in the Gonk droid. They talked this conversation of, we're trying to strike this fine line between fan service, like superficial fan service, and more of kind of building and creating a deep, diverse world. And I think they hit that. I would say there are probably moments where fan service is a little more underhanded, didn't really hit the mark as much, but I think for the most part they really get that balance pretty well. Something else they talked about that was really cool is the ATST, and how, in the original trilogy it's a stop motion creature with, you have the hitches and the kind of almost unnatural movement of it. It looks good, but you definitely see the hitch. And when they went out and, they have the ability to do this all in CG, they had to make sure that it still feels like it did in the original trilogy. So you're taking reference shots of the old stop motion and trying to give it, be a little bit more smooth, a little bit more realistic, but also still have the same vibe as the original. And it's something that they did with the Blurgs too, although we also got stop motion Blurgs when he was looking at the Blurgs through his binocs. But yeah, and just some other things they pulled in. The gun, his pulse rifle, was originally Boba Fett's rifle in the holiday special, which is the first canon appearance of, well, not canon anymore. It was the first actual appearance of Boba Fett. It was like a little cartoon that played in the middle of it. They recreated Mos Eisley Cantina 1-to-1. They had the volume, of course, the video wall that we're tying into it. Everything, all the bar itself and the booth that they sat in were all recreated from A New Hope, all down to the smallest of details. So you also see that evolution of the cantina, where now, back in A New Hope 6 years ago or whatever, droids weren't allowed in, and now they're running the bar. And the cool thing about that is they actually had Mark Hamill in to voice the bartender droid EV-99. And he tweeted a bunch about it afterwards, that apparently he's been doing voice cameos in Star Wars for a long time now. They just have like a fake kind of pen name for him. And he would do the voices of a bunch of different background characters, which I think is really cool. Mark Hamill would be, beyond being Luke Skywalker, for a lot of people, he's the Joker. He's a really good voice actor. And it's cool to see that he's been doing that in Star Wars for a little while now. But they also brought in R5-D4, which was the droid that almost became R2-D2 in A New Hope, the one that they bought from the Jawas and then crapped out. Filoni was just saying, like, yeah, we had an R5 unit, and I just had him repaint it to look like R5-D4, and we gave him a little like grease stain where the motivator blew out. And it's like, yeah, it makes sense that he probably never would have left the planet. Again, only like it's. In real life, it's been like 44 years, or 42 years, but in actuality, in the universe, it's been like 6 years. So he's probably still just roaming around there doing whatever. But the coolest thing out of this episode by far was definitely the 501st. And if you don't know what the 501st is, I mean, come on. But they're the fan legion of cosplayers for, I mean, they're officially run through Lucasfilm now. But they basically mostly do Stormtrooper, Imperial Troopers, but there's some other divisions, like they have clones and stuff like that. But they're people that take cosplaying very seriously. They have reference photos, like they have a certain, if you want to be a member, you have a certain level of detail you need to meet. And they are very, very particular. But they do a lot of charity events, whether it's like going to hospital visits. They'll do parades, they'll do like movie premieres, all kinds of stuff. But they were talking about the last episode where they had the Stormtrooper garrison behind Moff Gideon. They're like, we don't have enough Stormtroopers to really get what we want. So they just called up the 501st chapters in the garrisons, is what they're called, in California. It's got like 30 dudes to show up the next day and fill out that scene. It was super cool because they didn't even know what they were coming for. They're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna call from Lucasfilm. They want us down for some event. Sure, whatever. Throw on our armor. Let's get down there. And they show up and they're like, oh, yeah, you're on the TV show, which at this point you probably haven't heard much beyond rumors of. So yeah, you're in it now, which, I mean, that's like, what an experience that would be. Like, I mean, just the dream, like you're the biggest Star Wars fans, and you're bringing them in and telling them, hey, you're going to be on screen in Star Wars. Like, so cool. And even like something I didn't think about the first time, I was like, well, when I first was watching it, like Filoni comes on and he's saying how it's the dream of everyone. Like, it'd be the coolest thing for any of these guys to have a screen use prop or like a helmet or a gun as part of their costume. But now everything that they wore is screen used because their costume was part of the television show. So their entire costume is now a screen use prop, and they just get to take it home with them, and that's their suit. So that's super sweet. The last thing they talked about was the X-Wing shot with Dave, Deborah, and Rick in the Prisoners episode. How none of them were really interested to do it, but Favreau kind of was like, you must do the shot. And they compared it back to the original trilogy and how you should be like kind of act cool, calm, and collected, like you're a stone cold pilot. But the funny thing was the cockpit they used, they didn't have an X-Wing cockpit on Skywalker Ranch for whatever reason, so they took a X-Wing that was supposed to go down to Orlando for Galaxy's Edge, and they're like, hey, I need you to divert that shipment here. We need to use it for a day so we can get our shots in. And they had like a vertical support strut in the center where the seat would go, so that because they have hurricane winds and stuff like that they have to worry about since it's outdoors. So they had to cut it out and put a seat in for them. Yeah, that's what they used for the shot. They just sat in this full-size X-Wing. And hyper nerd in me wants to point out that cockpit, that X-Wing that they had, is a T-70, the model the Resistance uses, while the ones in the show were T-65s, which are what the Rebels use. So clearly we got a big issue here. But no, I'm kidding. It's I mean, I would love to sit in an X-Wing, so I can't really complain. So I think that's about all I got for those 2 episodes, and that's it for the gallery. I think it was an overall super cool series to watch. It was really awesome to see this behind the scenes footage, and I really hope they do another one for season 2, because I'm sure there'll be a lot more that they can talk about. Maybe a shortened season. I don't think I need. I mean, there'll be more practical effects, new practical effects, but I don't know if I need to see Baby Yoda twice, or I need to see the Razor Crest twice, or the volume. There's a lot of things that you're probably not going to want to repeat, but I'm sure they can have enough content for like a 4-episode season. So please, Disney, make me more Disney Gallery and even for more stuff than The Mandalorian. I'm a big fan of these behind the scenes docu-series, so keep them coming. But with that said, I think that's all we got this week. Don't forget, we have Brick Hard Meat of the Galaxy of Bureaus podcast coming on next week. So come check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hit me up at SpicedInPod on Twitter and Instagram. Patreon, The Spiced In. thenewspicedin.com. Please go check that out. It's been a lot of fun and a lot of work. So I hope you get some enjoyment out of it. But that's all I got for this week. Thanks as always to Graham Bull for providing the music for this show. And may the Force be with you.